worldwide respect for the Nobel Prize and for the people who receive it is mirrored in the pageantry and dignity surrounding the award. For more than a week, there are receptions, dinners, lectures, and finally, a royal banquet. More than 2,000 people gather in the Stockholm Town Hall and join together to honor that year's Nobel Prize winners at a formal dinner hosted by the King and Queen of Sweden. The opulence of the occasion is matched only by the importance of this annual ceremony. But of all the events that take place in Stockholm during Nobel Week, the most impressive is one that takes place each December 10th. The anniversary of the death of Alfred Nobel, when that year's prize winners in the fields of physics, chemistry, literature, economics, and physiology or medicine are accompanied onto the stage of the Stockholm Concert House for the award ceremony. In 1977, 3 Americans shared the prize for medicine. One half of the award went to Rosalind Yalow. The remaining half was divided between Roger Guilliman and Andrew Shalley. Before an international audience of diplomats, friends, relatives, international dignitaries, and representatives of the world press, the newest laureates are called forward to receive the highest recognition in their field.
Rosalind Yalow, Roger Guilliman, Andrew Shalley. The road of every scientist is paved by frustration, but some reach the goal they aspire to and enjoy the pleasure and excitement of having learned something that no one knew before, and for that enjoy imperishable honor in the learned world. Few ever reach the point at which you have arrived, to undertake a formidable task and to come to a solution which not only attracts the admiration of your colleagues or scientific colleagues, but which in the best spirit of Alfred Nobel, also contains a possibility to understand the structure of human life and of human behavior. The Karolinska Institute is happy to be able to award you this year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for your contributions and congratulate you. And may I now ask you to receive the insignia of the Nobel Prize from His Majesty the King.
Rosalind Yalow, Veterans Administration Hospital, the Bronx, New York. Born, the Bronx, 1921. Married and the mother of 2. Roger Guilliman, the Salk Institute, La Jolla, California. Born Dijon, France, 1924. Married and the father of 6. Andrew Shalley, Tulane University School of Medicine. Veterans Administration Hospital, New Orleans, Louisiana. Born Vilno, Poland, 1926. Married and the father of 2. Alfred Nobel was a brilliant Swedish inventor, also a spectacularly successful industrialist. His business interests were spread across 5 continents. Hello, I'm Dave Crowett. When Alfred Nobel died in 1895, he left a will stipulating that the income from a fund he set up with the equivalent of 80 million of today's dollars be annually distributed in the form of prizes to those who shall have conferred the greatest good on mankind. Since 1901, when the awards began, only 470 prizes have been given out. If the Nobel Committee can't find any work of high enough quality to deserve a prize, there's no award given that year in that field. Laureates of previous years include Pavlov, Einstein, Marconi, the Curies, and more recently, Watson and Crick. The cash award is based on the success of Nobel Foundation investments and varies from year to year. This year, the winners in medicine received a gold medal, a diploma outlining the achievements that led to the award, and a tax-free share of the $145,000 prize. Rosalind Yallow received 1/2 of the award in recognition of developing radioimmunoassay, a means of measuring biological substances that is so exquisitely sensitive that it can detect the equivalent of a half lump of sugar in a lake 35 miles wide, 100 miles long, and 30 feet deep. Roger Guillemin and Andrew Schally each received a 1/4 share for their work in discovering and synthesizing brain hormones called polypeptides, affecting some of the basic physical processes of human life. In doing so, they opened up promising new areas for the treatment of some of man's most feared diseases. Once a scientist has received the Nobel Prize, life is to some extent going to be different. When the receptions and banquets are over, there still remains the distinguishing phrase Nobel laureate. It will follow every public mention of his or her name. In his room at the Grand Hotel in Stockholm, Andrew Schally recalls his reaction to the news of his selection.
Well, my wife and I were about to leave for the hospital. We always leave. We work 6 to 6, so it was about 6 or 5. We were about to leave for the hospital as usual, and telephone rings. My wife answers, and she says, "I think it's for you." And then I hear a voice, "This is Nobel Prize Committee. Congratulations to the new winner." I was speechless. I said, "Let's drive to the hospital before I get too emotional about it." Nobel Prize, of course, is the dream of every scientist, yet so few people achieve it. Not everybody who deserves Nobel Prize gets Nobel Prize. Well, I was lucky to start in research at a very young age of 22. I worked in Britain. I was trained by 7 scientists who subsequently all won Nobel Prizes, and I sort of became infected with their enthusiasm, and I learned a lot from them, and I feel that research became my profession. If I worked hard, was to prove that I'm right, and now the whole world knows that I'm right. So pride and ambition had a lot to do with whatever I may have achieved. We use these hormones all over the world, and my wife did leading work on these analogs of LHRH in her patients, and used these analogs successfully to stimulate fertility in previously infertile women, and she published her work, so she's very well known for that. That's how we met.
I had opportunity to do clinical research with hypothalamic hormone. That was very nice for me. The result I have successful. I have used it for patients, for diagnosis and for treatment. My patient had secondary amenorrhea, and when I used this hormone, patient had menstrual cycle. That was nice.
Nobody wants to develop a hormone that's good for curing a sick rat or a sick frog. We weren't after that. So the moment we realized that these hormones are active in the human, we knew that this was something worthwhile devoting an enormous effort, and it was an enormous effort.
The New Orleans Superdome is a symbol of excitement and competition. Just as in the athletic events that take place there, much of modern research is a team effort, complete with stars and cheering sections that take pride in the victories of their team. Next door to his laboratory in the lobby of the New Orleans Veterans Administration Hospital facility, Andrew Schalley's Nobel citation and medal were placed on public display so that patients and staff could take pride in the achievements of Dr. Schalley and his co-workers.
The actual work that led to Nobel Prize was done in this building, and much of it was done in this very laboratory. I was involved in the hypothalamic field as an undergraduate student. We made certain findings, and at first they were received with enthusiasm, and then other people had problems confirming it. So it was a matter of pride to continue working on this subject and ultimately prove who was right and who was wrong. After I moved from England to Canada, I started working at a psychiatric institute as an endocrinologist, and there we followed hormonal changes of patients in urine primarily, but also in blood, the blood ACTH, because we were interested why some people are normal, why some people display abnormal behavior, schizophrenia, paranoia, and so forth. Disturbed patients had different levels of certain hormones in blood. And at that time it was thought ACTH might be of benefit to mentally ill people, but subsequent studies showed that it would only make them worse. Anyway, we had to develop certain methods for measuring ACTH. After we developed a method for measuring ACTH, we had to find a use for it. Since we were working on brain, we thought of studying how a certain part of brain, named the hypothalamus, controls the pituitary gland. That was the first study, control of the release of ACTH. And we were able to discover a hormone in the hypothalamus, which we called CRF, which stimulated the release of ACTH. This was the first proof that such hormones existed. The hypothesis really belonged to a British scientist named Geoffrey Harris, but Harris did primarily anatomical and physiological studies. To demonstrate that hormone exists, one has to do some biochemistry, which Harris did not. We did. So we changed his hypothesis into a concept. We built the foundations of the concept by showing that these postulated chemical transmitters from the brain really exist. Since 1960, about many labs tried to work on this project, famous labs, and nobody got anywhere except Dr. Gilman and my own lab. Simply, fate had much to do with it. On the other hand, the seed fell on a fertile ground, if you know what I mean. Nobel is the highest recognition.
The Nobel Award, shared by the 3 prize winners in medicine, recognized the practical applications of their discoveries. At the New Orleans Veterans Administration Hospital, patients are already benefiting from the laboratory work of Dr. Schalley and his colleagues. One of them, Dr. Abba Kasten, chief of endocrinology at the hospital, explains.
Andrew's findings in the laboratory are helping us to understand, diagnose, and treat disorders of bodily function. The X-ray of this patient shows that he may have a pituitary tumor. But, as sometimes happens with X-rays of the skull and the pituitary fossa, there's difficulty being certain. It measures just borderline, and we can't really be certain by any means. There are other laboratory tests that we have performed, and they also, unfortunately, are in the borderline category. Later today, we're going to inject this man with another of the hypothalamic peptide hormones called TRH. And the results of this test, we hope, will help us determine whether he has a hypothalamic or a pituitary tumor. This is important, of course, because one of the major treatments that we would consider for this case is surgery, and we would certainly want to be a little more certain than we are now, in fact a great deal more certain, before we perform surgery on this man. Either the hormones we have now or the hypothalamic hormones that are almost certain to be isolated relatively soon will be useful in treatment of such disorders of diabetes mellitus, perhaps disorders of the gastrointestinal tract, such as peptic ulcer, obesity, perhaps, this is still speculative, but perhaps some cancer of the breast or even of the prostate gland. These are logical extensions of the laboratory work done by pioneers like Dr. Shalley.
I find that 12 hours of hard, efficient, and organized work per day is enough. That's what I do. Monday through Friday, 12 hours a day. Saturday I work less, 4 or 5 hours. Before I got married, I worked up to 100 hours a week, but that's too much. Because in the morning I come in, I start the experiments. But once the experiment is under control and automatic, then I have an hour or two until everybody else comes in. So that's the best time for thinking and for writing. When I'm fresh in the morning, 6 to 8, or 6:30 to 8:30. Because I'm fresh, I'm mentally rested. Many outsiders don't realize how many years of work it takes to produce just a few crystals, a few micrograms of hypothalamic hormones. But the synthetic hormones, of course, are cheaper. They're many thousand times cheaper than the natural hormones that have to be extracted from the brain of animals. One of the packers, Oscar Mayer, has been very generous to me. We managed to obtain several 100,000 hypothalami virtually free of charge, and that saved a lot of money and really enabled us to have enough starting material to isolate the hormones we wanted.